Morning everyone, great to be here. This is the second year we've been at the Workplace Wellness Festival, and it's great to see it growing with increasing interest from leadership all the way through organisations. So I have a big talk to cover in a very short period of time. Hopefully I can provide some context and some practical advice as well that you can apply to whatever organisation you work with at whatever level you're working at. So look, I'm a neurologist, and so I'm a medical specialist that's worked through the hospital system, and I see a lot of patients over the years that have preventable illness, and then I became interested in population health and how we could better improve systems and processes so that people could have access to care wherever they are, and that care needs to be valid and evidence-based, and it needs to be sustainable. So there's a lot that goes into developing systems like that. It became pretty clear that we spend so much of our waking life at work, and organisations are built around people, and people carry their emotional, spiritual, physical concerns and needs into work every day, and they're expected to perform at a certain level. When you look at the health profile of Australian population, about 1 in 2 adults have a chronic illness, 1 in 10 chronic illnesses, or 1 of 10, and that excludes lots of other common ailments. And so obviously we know mental health is a huge problem in Australia and across the world, and you know, at any point in time, about 1 in 5 people have some form of mental health complaint or behavioural issue that's impacting their everyday life, and they bring that to work and they take it home. But then there's a whole raft of other things which are sort of under the tip of the iceberg that people have everyday: migraines, abdominal pain, women's health issues, fertility problems. There's lots of complaints that will affect people in this room, whether it's, you know, as I said, migraines and headaches, endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, whatever it might be. People carry these things into work every day, arthritis and so forth, and they work through it. And we know that if you have a chronic illness or chronic pain or something like that, there's also psychological distress that goes with that. When you group all of that up at an organisational level, no matter how big or small it is, it has an impact. And that's something that needs to be acknowledged. And it's something that organisations stand to benefit from if they turn their mind to it and they can help solve it. So I've sort of gone through these statistics here, and these are all up-to-date statistics, Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. And if you go in there, you'll be surprised to see how many people are affected by problems every day. And it's not just the problem that affects them, it's then the ancillary inconvenience of having to see healthcare professionals during work time and coordinate care, and people drop off their sort of healthcare journey and then they start again, and it's a vicious cycle. And with increasing cost of healthcare, it's becoming more difficult again. These chronic illnesses ultimately result in days off work, difficulty with interpersonal interactions, hospitalisations, and what you really don't want to see is people ending up at that stage. And often this stuff is just running along in parallel with work. You know, people are doing their thing, they're surviving, they'll take whatever days off they can, whether it's directly affecting them or they're a carer, but it really impacts businesses, and we know this to the tune of tens of billions of dollars every year. There's also the other side. So there's disorder and there's chronic illness, which can be prevented, a lot of it, and also managed better. And then there's the positive psychology side of it. And everybody fits into somewhere into this bell curve, whether we want to feel like we fit into a bell curve or not, we do. And on this particular one, you either have a problem that is causing issues and impacting your daily life every day, and that needs fixing. So you really, whether it's a mental health issue, a physical health issue, a social issue, and at that point you'd be classified as having some sort of disordered function that needs to be rectified or needs support. Then there's languishing, which is a group that we really want to help protect. These are people who are on the verge of burning out. It may be due to dealing with work stress, family stress, illness. Then there's your moderate, we call him Stagnant Steve, and that's sort of the 9-to-5er, where you're sort of just going along, you don't have much purpose or focus, and if you don't sort of start being proactive about your well-being, you're going to slip down. And then there's flourishing, which is, I mean, if everybody was like this, the world wouldn't be very enjoyable. It'd be boring and annoying, but it would be great to have more people up this end of the curve every day. And so I don't want to just focus on the individual personalised health aspect of well-being, because we know, and we've heard it so many times over the last couple of days, that an organisation is really, what we're aiming for is a group of people that work cooperatively and collaboratively toward a unified vision or a goal. And that's the dream for any human resources organisation or board, that everyone mobilises and does what they should be doing. But it's very hard to make that happen, because we've got diverse people in organisations. We should have diversity. The more diversity of thought, ideas and culture and backgrounds, the better the outcomes are going to be. We know that. So it's much harder than what it used to be when we were monocultures, and we would have rules that everyone would subscribe to and co-create together. And then there was authoritarian regimes where you could lose your life if you didn't do your job. We've moved so far now as a civilization, as organisations, that we need to look after the whole person and understand how to unite people of different backgrounds under a shared vision, and their personal well-being is part of that. But what I want to sort of be clear about is there's no way you can implement a personalised well-being solution unless you've got an organisational well-being solution. And these are the key things that make an organisation tick, run, and turn it into a tribe. And I've always liked that. I've always liked that saying that the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts. And I think it's where 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It's where 1 + 1 equals potentially infinite if you get it right. So you really need an organisation that has strong leadership, that's empathetic, and I mean that in the operational term of empathy. That is really seeking to understand your organisation's needs, the people in your organisation, how they work, how they wish to work, listening, actively listening, making sure vision is clear, there's clarity around roles, processes, decision making. All of that creates a psychologically safe environment. People need to feel valued, they need a safe and it doesn't need to be an inspiring work environment, but it needs to be one that's conducive to sort of natural everyday behaviours, natural light, working from home policies, leave policies. All of that create an organisation that is going to, from a systems and structural perspective, cater for people so that they can get on with their job and know where they sit and not be micromanaged. If you've got that right, you can then move on to personalised solutions, because you're going to have a leadership team that are going to back it. They're going to champion it, they're going to understand it, and they're going to understand then that if you look after people one by one, you're going to have really a whole that is far greater than the sum of its parts. So this is a sort of formula. This is a simple formula that in execution is very difficult. But if you've got some proactive approaches, some rules, some guidelines to follow, we can all get there with organisations. So personal wellbeing plus organisational wellbeing equals success. And that's success at an individual level for people and their families. It's success on the P&L and the profit that a company will get. So it really it's a win-win for everybody. But you've got to commit to going on the journey of whole organisational and individual wellbeing. So how to get it right? So these are some of the practical things. So firstly, choose employee wellbeing partners that partner, that don't sell. So if someone's selling you a product or a service, and it's a fixed product or service, whether it's hours or whether it's a device or whatever it might be, that's not partnering. That's just selling something. So partnering really is seeking to understand how you can solve and further understand how a wellbeing partner can help your organisation at its stage, its evolution, and its demographic. The next thing is choose employee wellbeing partners that co-create a strategy with you based on your needs. So I've basically just said that. The next thing is ensure your strategies and services are overseen by qualified professionals. So one of the things that we've seen in the in this sort of wave of wellbeing and wellness is a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon, and now we've got to calm down and start looking at what evidence there is, what works, what doesn't, and make sure it's evidence-based. And there are lots of experts, and we've been lucky enough to hear from them this week, that have dedicated their lives to understanding not only health, well-being, organizational culture, and also how it all ties together when it comes to running a business. So there are people that have done this, and there are lots of people that haven't done all that hard work, and you've got to pick see the woods from the trees, pick the candy from the apples. Proactive approaches will work, reactive ones never will. So if you're seeking to change things sustainably, incrementally over time, that will improve your organisation, become an employer of choice, have healthier organisations, improve your bottom line, whatever it is that your driver is, a reactive partner, a wellbeing partner will never work. It has to be a proactive partner that sets processes up, has products and tools that solve problems up front and engage employees. Now, they must be customisable. So not everyone's the same. Some people are going through family planning years. Some people are already on 5 medications and have 6 different specialists they see. Some people just want to repeat prescription conveniently so they don't have to leave work, be stuck in traffic. So there's lots and lots of different personas and stages and phases that will matter to different people. And it's very important that you partner with wellbeing providers that understand that. And sometimes you won't have an organisation that can do all of it, but you need to be clear that a gym membership won't work for everybody, right? Or $300 to go and get some tennis shoes may not achieve the goal that you want just because it comes under the FBT cap. So you have to be really clear about why you're spending your money. The other thing is it's pretty clear based on a number of the different industry surveys, Reward Gateway and others, that after wages, after being appropriately remunerated for your role, fairly remunerated and valued in that way, which is essential as part of that organisational wellbeing, the next step is people want to have their wellbeing supported beyond that, beyond their wage, beyond remuneration. And it's probably the number one addition to employee value propositions now. So people are saying, okay, well, how are you going to care for me beyond my paycheck? And I think there are very cost-effective ways to demonstrate you care as an organisation to your employees, and build that engagement, build that loyalty through your EVP, but also make it work for you so that it's not just a tokenistic thing. The next thing is make sure that your providers are willing to be evaluated. So if there's an organisation that's aiming to provide a service to you and it's a set and forget, that's a red flag. What you really want is someone that quarterly, half annually, annually evaluates what they're providing with you against key success metrics that you determine up front. Now that depends on an organisation. Some organisations may say, well, what we want to do is reduce churn. We want to improve our retention of employees. We want to attract talent more quickly. We want to reduce recruitment costs. And they may say, well, how can we do that? What things can we build into our packages that will achieve that? And you need to measure whether the wellbeing tool or support strategy is moving that needle or not. If it's not, well, then you have to be accountable to that and say, look, we're not actually helping you with your tenure over a 2-year period. Sorry, it's not part of the EVP. It's really not moving a needle on EVP. It may be that an employer wants to reduce cancer rates within their organisation. They want to be Australia's healthiest workplace. They want to see people quit smoking, improve their sleep profiles. So then the provider should be providing reports that show that. Chronic illness profiles, sleep improvements in organisations, improvements in physical activity, number of cancers prevented, whatever it is, whether it's a business success metric or a wellbeing success metric, establish upfront what matters to you and find providers that can provide that and measure it over time. And that way you'll be able to go back to the board and to the CFO and say, look, engagement's really high, we're achieving this, we should renew this contract. It helps substantiate a business case for ongoing support for your people, which is something that's really important. Finally, I've actually said that, continually assess impact on the business and people. So hopefully that's a bit helpful, I guess, as a framework for how to assess providers. And at the end of the day, what you're measuring is cost versus impact. So there's lots of things that go into choosing a anything that is a benefit for a reward or benefit for your employees. Sometimes it's free lunches or a wellbeing day. You think, well, what is that actually doing? And it's very important to understand what's the perceived value. How much do employees perceive the value of that? Because perception is important when it comes to feeling valued. But really what you're looking at is cost versus impact. And that impact could be on the people, it could be on the money, whatever it might be. So you need to have cost versus impact review of everything that you do. And again, know what you're measuring up front. So I think that the main thing is don't purchase hours, don't purchase services. You need to invest in solutions. So you need to identify the problem, have an intervention, and measure the outcomes. And I finished just on time.